1-844-500-4242. That's the toll-free number of the Howie Carr Show. Joining us now on the line is Congressman Jeb Hensarling from Texas, and he's been conducting the Wells Fargo hearings. But before we get to that, I want to ask him about what he's expecting in the debate tonight. He's Congressman Hensarling. Thanks for being with us here on the Howie Carr Show.
Howie, thanks for the invitation.
And you served, I believe, with Mike Pence, didn't you, in Congress?
Yeah, I did. He is a dear friend of mine. He was my mentor when I came to Congress, and I got to tell you, he's a guy who has fought the establishment the whole way the whole time that he has been in Washington. So I think it's a perfect pairing with Donald Trump, and I was thrilled when Trump picked him, and I got to spend a little time with Mike earlier today, and as the phrase goes, he's tan, rested, and ready.
Do you think he's going to get a fair shake, unlike Donald Trump got last week? This seems to be a recurring problem for Republicans.
Well, it is a reoccurring problem. I mean, it's a reminder why I think the American people are going to reflect upon the fact that they don't want to be intimidated by the Washington elite, the Wall Street elite, or the media elite that are all backing Hillary Clinton. And so, no doubt about it, we're on Kane's home turf. We're in his home state. But if anybody can get the job done, it's Mike Pence. He knows who he is. He knows what he stands for. And he just has to remind the voters again, if you're dissatisfied with the status quo, and remember that Hillary Clinton is the status quo. In fact, she wants to double down on it, be it Obamacare, that at least her husband now recognizes is a disaster.
Well, now he's backed off, though, today. A little late in the game to be saying it's a good idea, but he has he has been scolded, I guess, by the campaign apparatus.
I'm sure he's been taken to the woodshed for being candid. I mean, not something the Clintons are typically known for. But in this case, he committed the great sin of telling the truth to the American people, apparently.
Yeah, he did. And there's so many good questions. We've been asking people, our listeners, to phone in questions for Tim Kaine tonight. Was deposing, in retrospect, Gaddafi a good idea? Has it made Libya a better country, for instance? And $100,000 investment, $100,000 return on cattle future investments, and never once making a bad bet. Is that a bombshell story that belongs on the front page of the New York Times? But of course, they're never going to be asked those questions, are they? Or Tim?
No, they're not. And I mean, it's one of the reasons why most Americans don't read the New York Times. And last I looked, they were in financial trouble. So there's a reason why, and why we should all be intimidated by the New York Times. I don't know.
Well, listen, Congressman Hensarling, I really enjoyed those hearings last week. I know with Wells Fargo, I know sometimes those hearings are just kind of like show trials, they call them, and people are brought in, and the congressmen get to yell at them. But in the case of the stump from the Wells Fargo Bank, I mean, I thought he really had it coming to him. He deserved to take a pounding from you guys.
Well, here's the bottom line. I mean, we're talking about up to 2 million accounts that were opened fraudulently by folks on his watch. Now, I don't know personally what he knew and when he knew it, but it absolutely defies credibility to think that you could have had 5,000 employees over 5 years, 2 million fraudulent accounts, and somebody up the food chain not know it. And so, again, it's why we need somebody who will enforce our laws, and clearly this administration isn't doing it. And Hillary Clinton still backs the Dodd-Frank law that makes it possible for Wells Fargo to get a multi-gazillion-dollar taxpayer bailout. I mean, it's just inexcusable.
Well, there's a new leak this afternoon. I don't know if you've heard about it, Congressman Hensarling. Guccifer has leaked out some DNC documents, and they have all of the TARP bailout payments on a spreadsheet to the banks, and then in the next column over is how much money they've given to the Democrats. I mean, talk about pay for play. I mean, it's just quite obvious what's going on here.
Well, it's funny how the Democrats talk a good game about Wall Street, but public records show 95% of all Wall Street money is going to Hillary Clinton. No candidate in America's history has personally enriched themselves more from Wall Street than Hillary Clinton. I mean, they were making millions and millions off these speaking fees, and yet she still refuses to release the contents of those speeches. I guess maybe they were part of those deleted emails. Thousands of deleted emails we're still searching for as well. So it's really quite hypocritical for her to continue to back bailouts for Wall Street Bank, to take all that money and then try to turn the finger away, towards somebody else.
And some of these investment banks have ordered their employees not to give money to Donald Trump.
Yeah, I read that. It's just absolutely mind-boggling and shocking. And, oh, by the way, what happened to the First Amendment? And financial contributions are part of speech, and every American citizen ought to be able to donate either their time or their talent or their treasure to whatever candidate they so choose. So I'm not completely certain what's going on there.
Here's another question for Tim Kaine tonight. Do you think Hillary should release the transcripts of those speeches to Goldman Sachs, where she was paid $225,000 per speech? That's a pretty good rate of return for 20 minutes work,
Oh, yeah, I would say so. And, obviously that's how the Clintons made their millions. And then, that something dodgy was going on with the Clinton Foundation, where apparently it was your classic pay-to-play scheme. And so, we need answers here. And, they're talking about Donald Trump's tax returns. Well, guess what? Somebody already illegally revealed that, and he follows the law, and it's something the Clintons could take a lesson from, actually following the law and doing what's illegal.
We're speaking to Texas Congressman Jeb Hensarling. You're in Virginia tonight, is that right?
Yeah, I'm right here in Farmville, Virginia. Beautiful place. I've never been here before. And again, got to spend a little time with Governor Pence earlier today, and really, really looking forward to him getting on stage.
What is it? What's the deal here with Wells Fargo? To get back to Wells Fargo, and again, they opened these millions of accounts. They took their clients' data and opened these phony accounts, so that they could charge them these monthly fees for accounts that they didn't know existed. That was the whole scheme, right?
Yeah, that was the scheme, and Howie, unfortunately, what Americans see is deja vu all over again. For some of these banks, these fines are just a cost of doing business. Unfortunately, again, it's a reminder why I trust free enterprise, but I don't trust individual businesses. I trust competitive markets. And so what happens is the regulators know that it's tough to convict individual Americans, but they know it's easy to basically shake somebody down for a headline fine, and then they get to pad their resume. They get some money that quite often they manage to allocate to political allies, but yet no individual is held accountable. I mean, at the end of the day, it's not a bank that perpetrates these crimes. It's individuals, and individuals need to be brought to justice. And there's so little justice to be found at the Obama Justice Department. I mean, they're the ones who coined the whole phrase, too big to jail. I don't believe in that. You don't believe in it. The American people don't believe in it. But apparently they believe in it, and somebody needs to be held accountable. Now, Congress, we pass laws, and House Republicans, in our committee, we just passed the Financial Choice Act that would double and triple many of the fines and penalties for fraud and deception. But on the other end of Pennsylvania Avenue, we got to have somebody actually enforce those laws. And it's hard work, and apparently the Obama Justice Department isn't up to it.
Well, our senator here in Massachusetts, Elizabeth Warren, she took a couple of victory laps on this Wells Fargo investigation. The Consumer Protection Finance Board was involved in this, and she talked about it, what a wonderful job they did. Yet, on the other hand,
the facts appear to be that they were negligent.
Well, that's what I was going to say.
They were sitting there on the case, and they had examiners there, and yet they didn't discover this, and they also let them off the hook for any admission of guilt and agreed to waive fines and penalties for all the various laws that in all probability were broken, be it the Truth in Lending Act, the Truth in Savings Act, the Electronic Funds Transfer Act, and I could go on and on and on.
My question, Congressman, is my understanding is the L.A. Times wrote a story in December of 2013 about what was going on at Wells Fargo Bank. That's almost 3 years ago. And yet,
you got it.
So what is the great sleuthing that they did? Why did it take them almost 3 years to knock these people down?
Well, exactly. I mean, these people don't deserve a pat on the back. It looks like they deserve a swift kick in the backside for being negligent in doing their job. And so Elizabeth Warren is nothing to crow about. She's one more defender of bailouts.
She's not a crow. She's a
way.
Cherokee.
Oh.
That's a local joke. Sorry, Congressman, I couldn't resist. She claims she's a Cherokee, I should say. Yeah.
Well, she makes a lot of claims, and
I would love to get a payroll. I would love to get a payroll for the Consumer Protection Finance Board. I've read some of these op-ed pieces in the Wall Street Journal that these salaries that they're paying themselves are totally outrageous, even by federal government standards. Do you have?
Well, they are, and Elizabeth Warren and Hillary Clinton support this kind of stuff. I mean, they are totally unelected, totally unaccountable. They write their own budget. Number one, they have no accountability.
Oh, that's
to Congress,
right.
And they're not enforcing the law, Howie. They're making up the law. And again, they're hurting consumers. The best consumer protection is competitive, innovative free markets that are policed for force and fraud. We have to protect consumers from both Washington and Wall Street. And Elizabeth Warren and Hillary Clinton are the worst part of Washington that has made sure that many consumers can no longer find mortgages. Free checking at banks has been cut in half. There are 15% fewer credit card offerings. Small business lending is at a 25-year low. All of this is Hillary Clinton and Elizabeth Warren's doing through their support of the Dodd-Frank Act.
Like I said, I thought you did a great job with those hearings last week. One of the members of your committee is Bruce Poliquin from up in our area. You want to give him a shout out?
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, he's the Energizer Bunny. He will not be outworked, and there is no burg or no business or no family too small in his district in Maine to escape his attention, to escape his help. He knows them all. He helps them all. And I got to tell you, anytime I'm having a bad day, I just get next to Bruce Poliquin, and he just revs me right back up. And the people of Maine would be very, very wise to return him to office.
One last question on Wells Fargo. Stump, I think I read, is he said he was going to give up $41 million in his payouts as he leaves. But he's still looking at $77 million. I mean, that does not seem right to me. That he would walk away after being the guy at the top of the totem pole when all this was going on. Is there any way to stop him from getting that $77 million payout?
Well, I don't think so. I mean, that's a decision of shareholders. Whether he goes or stays and how much he makes is a decision of shareholders. Washington's business is making laws, enforcing the laws, and applying the fines and penalties, and that's the payment that one receives for justice and fairness there. But, the American people can also vote with their feet if they so please. And listen, I know there's a lot of good people who work at Wells Fargo who had nothing to do with this, but the bottom line is it happened on this guy's watch. It was indemnity fraud, and it harmed working people, and somebody has to be held accountable, and I plan to hold the regulators accountable because they don't appear to be doing their job, and they're holding no individual at Wells Fargo accountable. It's a fine, which is a slap on the wrist. The regulators get their headlines, they pad their resume, and life goes on, but the American people get gypped. The customers get gypped. The shareholders get gypped, and that's not right.
And Hillary Clinton goes to Toledo and attacks Wells Fargo and doesn't mention that the number one shareholder in Wells Fargo is Warren Buffett, who's one of her biggest campaign contributors.
So she managed to leave that out of the speech.
She certainly did. And she also didn't mention that Wells Fargo has been donating money to the Clinton Foundation. Funny how she has a selective presentation of the facts, isn't it, Congressman Henseling?
Yeah, she does have a selective presentation of the facts. And again, there's probably some reason that 95% of Wall Street money is going to Hillary Clinton, and there's got to be, she's protecting their bailouts. And with Donald Trump and Mike Pence, that will end. There will be no more bank bailouts paid for by the American taxpayer. But Hillary Clinton and Elizabeth Warren, they want to preserve that system.
Thank you, Congressman Jeb Henseling from Texas, for being with us. And again, thank you. Thanks for speaking highly of Bruce Poliquin, too. We appreciate that as well.
Listen, thanks for having me, Howie.
Thank you. That's Congressman Jeb Henseling. He's down in Farmville, Virginia, where the vice presidential debate will begin tonight at 8:30. He's there to support his former colleague, Mike Pence, who was in Congress for a number of years. 1-844-500-4242. I'm Howie Carr.
He didn't come here to be made sport of. Howie Carr.